You're watching Time Warner Cable's Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. Our guest today, Anthony Portantino, member of the California State Assembly. And I think it's fair to say that you'll step out. You'll propose legislation that can be somewhat controversial, and you did over the last 2 years, both dealing with guns. And I hate to even use the word gun control, gun rights, because they're so loaded, but why don't you tell us about the two pieces of legislation that you submitted, both signed by the governor?
Well, first of all, I think they're very common sense solutions to a problem. They deal with the open carry of weapons in California, on Main Street, California. There was a loophole in California law that basically said if the gun was unloaded, all other gun laws didn't apply. So that meant you could have the weapon and you could be carrying the bullets. You could have the weapon on your hip and the magazine or the cartridges on the same belt. As long as they weren't in the gun, you were exempted from other gun laws.
So you could walk into a restaurant with a handgun open.
Correct.
Shown.
Correct. Restaurant, movie theater, local park, you name it. And so what happened is
It's a little scary. I mean, in California, that could be scary. In other parts of the country, it may feel more natural. But I think it's fair to say in California, we wouldn't.
And that's why, frankly, we exempted out the rural parts of the state in regards to the long guns, the rifles and shotguns, because Main Street, California is a different place than, in the middle of nowhere for the hunter. So we weren't going after that stuff. What we were trying to say is that the family out on Main Street has just as much right to be out there without having a whole bunch of folks show up at the coffee shop or the diner packing their weapons.
Right.
The other thing that happened is police started to get phone calls to go investigate those situations. Now, they don't know if the gun's loaded or unloaded, so they have to roll as if the guns are loaded.
But what's interesting about what you describe is, despite the fact that you had support of law enforcement, you did have the NRA come after you.
The gun rights advocates, frankly, didn't want to draw any line, even a reasonable line. And that's unfortunate because we need a reasonable conversation about this.
And what I want to ask you is about I think it's fair to say, successful efforts of the NRA to call a slippery slope a possibility at virtually every turn. Why have they been successful on that front?
Well, I think there's a lack of leadership on the big picture issues. We need people who get all sides in the room and say, you know what, we're a country of laws. We certainly have our rights and privileges. Nobody wants to do away with the Second Amendment. Second Amendment gives you the right to defend your home, but you can't infringe on somebody else's rights.
What's interesting is I think it's fair to say that during the 90s, the Brady Organization, which is a gun control group, I'll call it that, they seem to have the upper hand. I mean, yes, President Clinton is a Democrat, and he was presumably in support of what they were saying, but still.
Well, the Brady campaign was very supportive of my efforts. I'll be honest with you. There are certain folks who look at this as a losing political proposition. They think anything that even reasonable gun regulations is politically unpopular, and they're afraid of the issue. I know Democrats who were looking at this issue, trying to figure out if they could get a political advantage over me by working with the other side. Now, ultimately, some of them voted with me, but they were through the whole process searching for ways to try to find a political advantage on it, which is unfortunate, because when people's lives are at stake, we shouldn't be talking about politics.
And we talk about people's lives. Over the last few years, we've lost lives as a result of gun violence in Aurora, at Virginia Tech. Gabrielle Giffords almost lost her life. Her life is irreparably changed. Do you perceive the likelihood of more gun control legislation?
Well, I think, just from my perspective, when law enforcement came to me and said, help us solve a problem, it's my job as a policymaker to help them solve a problem.
Okay.
I do think we should have a bigger conversation about this. Reasonable. People should be able to craft something.
His name is Anthony Portantino, member of the California State Assembly. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thank you for watching Time Warner Cable's Local Edition.